So it's now officially been 2 years since Fallout 76 released and, graced us with its presence. And let's be honest with ourselves, I haven't seen a game get shellacked like this in a long time. Like, we're talking about people torching their entire Bethesda collection because of it. I tried so hard to like Fallout 76 when it came out, despite my plethora of apprehensions. I did that because Bethesda had never really let me down before. Despite the glitches and many other problems their games have had at launch, I've generally had a good time no matter what. But if there's one thing we all know, it's that some gamers and the internet in general can be a fiery pit of hate. There are countless examples of people being doxxed or canceled, and some games absolutely getting destroyed due to unpopular decisions by the company that produced it. But is it justified? In every case, no. Was Fallout 76 lumped into this barrage of systemic vitriol, or was that game truly that bad? Does it still have a future? How does it play today? Will Bethesda ever be able to recover the hardcore Fallout fanbase over arguably its worst mistake ever? Now that the dust has settled a bit, today, that's exactly what I seek to find out. And be sure to obliterate the like button for the algorithm's sake. Thanks! Look, I am one of the biggest Fallout advocates in existence. Honestly, Fallout 3 is the entire reason I even play video games today. I remember distinctly being a teenager who thought I was too cool to play video games anymore, selling or donating my entire collection to the Goodwill and moving on with my life. But one day, when I saw the likes of Oblivion and Fallout 3 gracing television screens across the world, I became hooked again. Fallout specifically attracts me because of the post-apocalyptic setting and the lore that could pass as a truly potential parallel universe if nuclear war had occurred in the mid-20th century. As a true testament to my fandom, Fallout New Vegas is one of my top 10 favorite games of all time, so naturally I was stoked to see a new Fallout game announced after pumping hundreds of hours into Fallout 4. I remember seeing sporadic headlines for a new Fallout game set to be announced at E3 2018. Having been a few years removed from the last title, it was only a matter of time before the hype started again for another title in the franchise. However, there was one teensy-weensy little detail about the game that trickled out that put me on guard. Rumor had it that the new Fallout game would be entirely online. This obviously alarmed me and a wide array of fans of the series, but I tried to remain hopeful. Trust me, I get it. Fallout and the Elder Scrolls have such a big allure to them because of the open world concept. The ability to wander around these expansive maps alone, curiously discovering what new dungeon is around the corner, or getting the surprise of your life when that overpowered Deathclaw ravages your feeble body, that is what always drew me to the Bethesda games. The experience truly feels like your own. Adding a required online element threatened the sanctity of that experience for me. Above all the reservations I had, I went into E3 positively optimistic that we would see something that would eliminate our fears. Well, that didn't really happen. You see, Todd Howard has this way with words.
It's our biggest one yet, 4 times the size. First to emerge, America's tercentenary. Plenty of cool new Fallout creatures. Real person is entirely online. It's more softcore survival. You'll never even see a server when you play. It's a little bit scary.
Not only were my fears confirmed, but also the announcement, nothing about it really wowed me. For the first time in the history of my love for Fallout, my hype began to fade. Had Bethesda really become so incredibly out of touch with their core fanbase that they wanted to take the opportunity to jump on the online game bandwagon? Was anyone outside of the few Gary Stews from the audience cheering actually thinking this was a good idea? Heck, even after Todd confirmed that Fallout 76 was entirely online, you could just tell he was wincing about how everyone would react.
Fallout 76 is entirely online. Okay. I know, there's a lot. You have like 1,000 questions right now.
When the curtain finally fell on the E3 presentation, thousands of gamers took to social media to express their justified concerns with what they had just witnessed. There were a couple of high points of the presentation. Todd did confirm that you could play the game solo. Although he didn't specifically highlight the differences in playing this way, vice with a group, he at least made it clear that a single-player campaign was possible. Also, Bethesda was releasing a collector's edition to rival all collector's editions with the legendary Power Armor helmet. which we'll get to later. Ironically enough, the game had launched a beta or break it early test application leading up to the game's official release. It contained promises to help resolve glitches or problems with the game initially, which many took as a good move for Bethesda. After all, they have definitely incurred their fair share of setbacks when a game's released. Adding an online element to it, this was definitely a good move. Another perk of being involved with the beta was the ability to carry over your progress into the actual game when it released. This perk was good enough for me to get involved because you were essentially playing the game early. Then, the beta released, and man, it bombed hard. I mean, I do understand the open disclaimer about this being a beta, but I never really encountered so many chronic, core issues with the game in my life. Servers constantly dropping out, glitches galore, unkillable enemies, story progressions erased, you name it, it was there. The beta was only available during certain hours of the day, which was understandable as Bethesda had to use the remaining time in an effort to fix some of the problems gamers were having with Fallout 76. Except, this posed an inherent problem. A lot of the issues I remember having with the beta were not fixed. These were problems rooted so deep into the game that they were literally unfixable. So much so that after the second time I jumped on it, I shelved the beta. This was not for me. This beta experience was killing my love for Fallout. I was just going to patiently wait for the full experience to drop on my doorstep on day one and hope for the best. And surprise, it didn't get much better after that. Fallout 76 was finally released on November 14th, 2018. Despite the issues I had with the beta, I was so enthralled to finally sink my teeth into a new Fallout game. Starting fresh, so fresh in fact that I actually began a gaming Let's Play channel to chronicle my experiences with the game. It was a way for me to kind of show my reaction real time while journeying into a realm of YouTube I had always sought to dabble in. When the game arrived in the mail, I was ecstatic to unearth the beauty of the Collector's Edition, which next to Fallout 3 was the coolest special edition of a game I had ever ordered. First problem, the promised Collector's Edition bag. You guys probably have an idea what I'm talking about. Imagine paying $200 for a collector's edition, only to receive less than what was actually advertised. The canvas bag that really added some authenticity to the entire ensemble arrived as, well, a cheap-ass nylon version. The best part? Bethesda's excuse for the change-up was that, well, the original canvas bag was too expensive. Are you fucking kidding me? The good parts? Well, the helmet was pretty darn cool, and honestly, it was like the entire reason I even pre-ordered it in the first place. And in retrospect, this mistake from Bethesda eventually ended up lightening the load on my wallet because it was the last collector's edition I've ever ordered on day one. Yeah, the absolute last. Second problem? Well, remember that promise Bethesda made for you to be able to continue your progress from the beta? Yeah, when I booted up Fallout 76, my Xbox was having none of that. Luckily for me, I also ordered the game on PS4, so I just ended up using an entirely new game over there after scrambling and complaining about it for 30 minutes. And then, once I finally booted up Fallout 76 on launch, I encountered yet another problem. Within the first 5 minutes of playing the game, I got booted from the server. Not once, not twice, but 8 freaking times. 8 times! Was my internet connection bad? No, I'm hardwired using fiber internet. The speed was not the issue. Was it my PS4? Nope. I even changed consoles to make sure, the one time I thought having 2 PS4s was helpful. There was literally no explanation for the disconnection. It just kept happening. When I was finally able to make it past the opening character creation screen, my journey with Fallout 76 began. Before we get too wrapped around the issues I had with Fallout 76, I understand that the game has a fair bit of fun to be had as well. And I did. The first few times I played Fallout 76, I had a blast, exploring the vast emptiness of the hills of West Virginia, avoiding hordes of overpowered online players, unlocking new weapons and perks for the first time. There were so many elements of Fallout 76 that I did enjoy, and that it took me back to the fresh appeal that each new Fallout game had before it. You see, there are a few games that I've played where I initially dismissed right off the bat. In fact, I would even argue that I try to see the best in many parts of the games that I play. It's why Nier is one of my favorite games of all time. It's why I think Condemned is an underrated masterpiece. It's why I sunk countless hours into Child of Eden on the 360 without using the damned Kinect. Fallout 76 was buggy. It was glitchy. There was no denying that. And yes, it did promise a lot and failed to deliver, but I tried my best to stick it out and find the best elements of the game. Unfortunately for Bethesda, there were just too many issues marring Fallout 76 for me to look the other way for long. Perhaps the most infamous issue with the game would be the plethora of glitches. There would be times I would be mowing down enemies for hours, then encounter another player online whose connection would render them unkillable. I've had dead enemies fall from the sky, nukes that would drop on me without any sort of warning at all, erasing tons of progress, side quests and locations that would glitch to the point where I couldn't progress any further. How could Bethesda, in good conscience, actually release a game that had so many problems? After the exorbitant amount of complaints they received following the beta, were they so blindly confident that their game was release ready? I don't even think they cared. Although the glitches were bad, it wasn't anything I hadn't seen before with their previous releases. New Vegas was unplayable in some ways after it came out, and heck, it became my favorite Fallout game ever. No, glitches aren't necessarily something that can make or break a game, but when the other elements of the game aren't strong enough to overcome its many blemishes, that is where you have disaster brewing. Not only were there plenty of issues with Fallout 76, its gameplay just wasn't enough to justify any positive rating. The biggest issue surrounding the game, in my opinion, is the complete lack of NPCs and live quests. There's virtually no one to talk to in the game. If you didn't have a friend to play the game with, this game was just empty. The side quests felt more like scavenger hunts, just pinging you from one area to the next with no real adventure present. If you were playing this alone, the game was so damn boring. It was so much of a letdown, I actually ended my Let's Play channel because of it. I remember at one point in the video being like, I'm just not having fun anymore. Fallout 76 wasn't just an empty wasteland. It was empty in the gameplay department. It felt like one big sandbox game without the sense of discovery or adventure. As you would expect, the game got absolutely roasted by critics. As opposed to a game like The Last of Us 2, where some unpopular writing had the game get review bombed, I actually thought this one was justified. People had to know how bad this game was. Bethesda had to open their eyes to the laziness of themselves. Gamers weren't going to stand for the complete disconnect Bethesda had with their fans. Another inherent problem with Fallout 76 is, once you achieved max level, unlocked all the perks, and defeated the toughest of enemies, what real incentive was there to continue the game? In fact, there are videos of some gamers actually getting this done in as little as 30 to 40 hours. With no inventive or attractive side quests at your disposal, the game just becomes an even emptier shell of itself, with literally nothing interesting to do. It's damn sad. Unfortunately, as time went on, and as Fallout 76 faded from the critical limelight, the game remained, for the most part, unfixed. In essence, it proved that Bethesda could produce a crap product and people would still buy it. Granted, Fallout 76 has only sold around 3 million copies, though that number is a bit marred due to the fact that Game Pass exists. It put it significantly behind its predecessor, Fallout 4. But it still sold 3 million copies. Even with the review bombing and the understandable criticisms littering the internet, people were still buying the game. Bethesda effectively got away with murder by releasing Fallout 76, and considering the game is still supported in 2020, they refuse to let it die. It's like they don't see it as a failure. In April of 2020, Fallout 76 got a much-needed makeover after the release of the Wastelanders DLC. Content that causes NPCs to come back to the world, a feature that many Fallout 76 fans say changed the game. But is it too little, too late? For me, absolutely. I actually purchased the DLC about a month after it came out, and honestly, all it did was make me depressed. Why wasn't this in the game in the first place? I understand that no game is perfect when it comes out. I understand the need for betas. I understand the allure of multiplayer games, but the complete failure of Bethesda to deliver a quality product that would not only satisfy longtime fans, but introduce a new audience was mind-blowing. This is a multi-million-dollar operation. How could a studio that produced masterpieces like Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout New Vegas, well, kind of, screw up this badly? Unfortunately, Bethesda has been slowly unhinging for years now. Evident by their blatant disregard for their fans, they've become more or less fixated on the bottom line and less about the actual games themselves. We haven't seen a new Elder Scrolls game in almost 10 years. And why would they work so hard to release a new one when Skyrim has literally been shoveled out and ported to everything but a toaster? Fallout 76 may be an acceptable game now, but for me, they seriously wounded my attachment to the series with the complete failure of a launch and misstep. Personally, based on the direction I've seen Bethesda approach lately, I don't have much hope for Fallout 5 either. As, maybe it will ever come out, I'm not even sure. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Fallout 4 was perfect either. We all know it wasn't. And now, with the recent Bethesda purchase by Microsoft, how will this change the future of their titles? Only time will tell, but believe me, I'm not overly optimistic. Hopefully Bethesda can look back on Fallout 76 as a failed experiment, one that they'll never try again, at least until they've perfected the online experience. And no, I'm not certainly sure that they'll learn anything from this, but one thing that I do know, I will never trust another word that comes out of Todd Howard's mouth again. So what do you guys think of Fallout 76? Do you enjoy it now? Did you enjoy it when it released? Is it a crap turd of a game? I want to know your comments below. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please consider subscribing, smashing that like button, and clicking the bell for notifications so that my videos can come to the top of your list. As always, guys, I will catch you next time.